Neşemiz var yuvamızı şenlendirmeye. Yeni başlangıçlarda hep birlikte gülümsemeye.
As we already mentioned about the earthquake, we are also very in very, very devastating moments in Turkey. We were also thinking that should we doing this panel or not, but then we understood that, especially in crisis and in other kind of conditions, women are much more vulnerable than ever. And gender-responsive kind of discussions in every realm should be done and should be worked on. That's why we are here for a special kind of topic here, but we can discuss in every level of the gender-responsive things. That's why we are talking about digital harassment and stalking today, because this has been beginning a kind of big issue in the world, around the world, in United States, Germany, Japan, and in all over the world, we are seeing so many rising kind of percentages about stalking. And as we know, this digitalization discussion is a very new discussion and not taken very seriously, because it is also seen as a kind of soft kind of, kind of effect to women. Why we are saying always women? Because we know and we have some academic and civil society-based kind of data that it is much more affecting the women, and they are getting more vulnerable on it.
And I think that it is important to acknowledge that the perception of stalking is sometimes that it's not the most severe crime, right? It's not a physical assault necessarily, it's not a sexual assault. But at the extreme end, it can be equally devastating to the victims. And so that's, I think, what I'm going to talk about today, which is what it really means to be a victim of stalking and why it's worth having a robust legal response. So at our firm, I've worked with dozens, maybe hundreds of victims of complex stalking. And the way I'm defining complex stalking is something more than a series of phone calls or a series of emails that cause irritation or alarm. The cases that we work on that get people to reach out to us are ones in which they're dealing with a full spectrum attack, right? The advent of smartphones has made stalking, digital stalking, a vastly more complicated problem, because none of us can really function without our phones and without our apps and without our email. And that means stalkers can now turn your phone effectively into a traumatizing device, right? They can make it so that a victim has to fear every notification that comes in their phone, because whether it is their perpetrator or a third party that has been sicked on them by their perpetrator, you have to worry about every single notification. So I can give some examples. We've worked on cases with the Department of Justice, because we do have a federal cyber stalking law under which, in certain very serious circumstances, people can go to federal prison for the conduct. What it normally requires to get the federal government involved are death threats, which are often a part of stalking. But what a more typical fact pattern will look like is someone will have a grudge, right? I'm thinking of a family I worked with, older people. Their son had caused offense to someone. The parents had no idea who or what it was.
And I think it's incredible that all of us are here today to address this universal violence that's impacting so many women around the world, women in our communities, and it is so extremely pervasive that for a lot of women, there's no opportunity to even figure out how to address it. The fact that it's happening, many women are aware of their phones being hacked, their computers being hacked, the cameras on their phones and their computers being hacked. being seen in their most intimate moments, and not having any power to have any control over those situations. So it's a very difficult battle, and I think this is the wonderful thing about all of us being here today, is that that first step begins with awareness, and awareness as to how insidious this violence is and how many people are impacted by it. In our group, Women Create, there are 3 journalists that had their pictures put online, their photographs put online with pornographic images, bodies that weren't theirs, that could, they made it seem like they could have been their bodies. And these were brilliant journalists. And unfortunately, due to this, a lot of them have the 3 of them, they've kind of really diminished their own professional careers as this has happened, for the reputational harm that's also caused their families. And so when we talk about how this digital harassment and surveillance is impacting the lives of women in real time, it is really just stunting people. It's killing people while they're still alive. One of the women that I spoke with was talking about how she feels paralyzed, constantly paralyzed, because there's nowhere she can go or escape where she's not being surveilled. And
as introduced, I've been working as an expert for 10 years at the General Directorate on the Status of Women. It's basically Turkey's national mechanisms for women's rights. And my duty is basically to follow the agendas of the women's rights of the United Nations, the Council of Europe, and other international organizations of which Turkey is a member. And I also contribute to those agendas on behalf of my country. Well, to be honest, I am neither a violence expert nor an online security expert, but as far as I observe from the international agendas, stalking has been on the table for some time now as an extension of violence against women, which is already existing a fundamental and a deep-rooted problem. I mean, just consider the priority theme of this year's CSW. It's innovation and technological change and education in the digital age for achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. Well, I think UN likes long titles. Well, this topic is very important while the world gets digitalized day by day. Yes, I mean, we know that there are very good opportunities in new technologies for women and girls, but there are also there are also big threats of online violence and harassment, and also artificial intelligence systems are really problematic. I mean, these systems can perpetuate already existing inequalities if no one intervenes or take necessary measures. As Sana said, people were making fun of the connection between the AI systems and the human rights, but now everyone agrees that it's a really big problem, an ongoing problem, and a growing problem. So, I mean, in Council of Europe, as far as I know, there is really a big deal for many countries, especially Nordic countries, are creating some serious policy documents on the issue. Well, having said that, about CSW, again, I encourage everyone to take a look at the outcome document of this year, namely agreed conclusions. The negotiations of the document have started yesterday on this document, and actually that's the reason why I'm in New York. And the outcome document will be adopted next Friday, hopefully. It's being negotiated by all the member states. And it will include a pathway and also suggestions for member states and NGOs to overcome the new obstacles of the digital era, including, of course, the cyber violence issue. And in this sense, I would like to thank KADEM for organizing such an important event and giving us, the ministry, the opportunity